Citing their own hypocrisy, freshman Democratic Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett repeatedly dunked on her hypocritical Republican colleagues during a hearing about crime in Washington, D.C. Intrigued? Then pop the popcorn, hit that like and subscribe, and enjoy the video. So the November 2022 midterms brought in a very impressive class of freshman Democrats to the House of Representatives, and one of which we've repeatedly talked about, named Jared Moskowitz of Florida. He's very funny, and he's very good at dunking on hypocritical Republicans. But now he faces some stiff competition in my heart for the very same reasons from a woman from Texas named Jasmine Crockett, who is also a freshman Democrat. She was a former civil rights attorney, and she did pro bono work for protesters who were arrested in the aftermath of the George Floyd murder. She's very sharp, she's very funny, and she dunked repeatedly on her Republican colleagues during a hearing, led by Republicans, of course, about crime rates in Washington, D.C. I'm going to play two clips, and we're going to dive into them. So let's hear the first one.
We're looking and we're seeing that sexual abuse offenses have increased over 48% in just 1 year's time frame from 2022 to 2023. I am so excited that my colleagues across the aisle care about sexual abuse, considering that the front runner right now for presidency is kind of just been found liable of sexual abuse. So I'm excited because this may mean that finally some folk will back off from supporting him because we don't support sexual abusers in this chamber. So I'm happy about this.
Very good, Representative Crockett. Of course, she emphasizes the hypocrisy beautifully. The first person in the clip was a Republican also from Florida, just like Jared Moskowitz that we talked about at the beginning. And her name is Annapolina Luna, and she is a right-wing darling. She is loved by MAGA and the Freedom Caucus. She is a devout supporter of Donald Trump. And Jasmine Crockett here is correct to point out Luna's hypocrisy. Luna and other Republicans are targeting Washington, D.C. because not only is it the nation's capital and kind of a metonym in their minds for, elite corruption, but it's also a deeply blue part of the country, right? So, of course, they're using their congressional majority to just try to point out every single issue with D.C. And, of course, D.C. has issues like most other cities and most other states. But as Representative Crockett points out, well, if you're condemning sexual abuse, which you should, and it's something that's appalling to you, well, then if that's the case, logic would dictate that you withdraw any support. And as a matter of fact, not only withdraw support, but if you were really behaving ethically, you would overtly criticize a presidential candidate, even if he's in your own party, since he was recently found by a jury of his peers to be liable for sexual abuse and defamation, and has to pay punitive and compensatory damages to the tune of $5 million, of course referring to Donald Trump. See, if Republicans were consistent, if they were actually acting at a principle, then they could criticize rising crime rates in D.C., but also other places as well, including red states, and they would also vociferously condemn Donald Trump since he has been found liable for the very same thing. But as the dunk implies, of course, Republicans have absolutely no interest in that because, of course, they're not acting at a principle. But anyway, it was a great clip, and she was right to condemn them. So let's play another one here from the same hearing.
Our Republican colleagues want to talk about keeping D.C. streets crime-free. They can't even keep the halls of Congress crime-free because we gonna talk about this because I got 24 seconds. My freshman colleague has just been indicted on 13 felony counts, right? But have they exhibited any courage to say, you know what, we will disallow this in our body. We will make sure that we expel this individual. They have not. So what I don't want to hear is that they care about crime, because if they did, they would start by cleaning up our own house and mind our own business instead of coming after D.C. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
Again, she's spitting facts there. It's the truth. She's, of course, referring to freshman Republican Congressman George Santos. We did a video updating you on him earlier today. He was indicted federally for various crimes, and the Republicans blocked a measure by Democrats to expel him from Congress. And again, Jasmine Crockett is correct to point this out. Listen, if you're really concerned with law and order and family values and all the things that Republicans constantly talk about, well, then you would, like Jesus did, Jesus Christ, the guy that Republicans say they devoutly worship, well, Christ held his followers to higher standards than anybody else. That was part of the deal. If they followed him, if they believed in his teachings, they were to comport themselves accordingly. And he despised hypocrisy. And unfortunately, that's where the Republicans shine. They are the Pharisees of the New Testament more than anything. They claim piety, they claim righteousness, but they're profound hypocrites, and they don't hold their own party and their own politicians and their own figures to the same standards they hold others to. So she's right to point that out. She's also right to take a shot at the fact that, if they really wanted to keep the streets safe, that they would probably start with the House of Representatives themselves, January 6th, which was a right-wing Republican fueled insurrection against the federal government that was led by the Republican president of the United States at the time. That should be vociferously condemned in the highest possible order. Like right-wing figure Jordan Peterson constantly says, you should clean your own room before you criticize others. I'm paraphrasing one of his 12 rules for life. Well, like Peterson, Republicans should probably look to themselves internally and excise people like George Santos, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump as well. Clean up their own house, get their own house in order before they start finger pointing at others. But of course they won't do that because at the end of the day, they are hypocrites, unparalleled hypocrites, certainly compared to Democrats who, again, as bad as they can be, are nowhere near as hypocritical, nowhere near as frequently, and nowhere near as egregiously as the GOP.